Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's LinkedIn session. Sorry about the delay. We had a few technical problems. Today's presentation will be focused on B Corp. It's B Corp Month this month, and we're having this Q&A session to celebrate that. The topic of today's live is Be Better at Business. And joining me today, there's 4 agencies who are all B Corp certified. That is Salt, Word Monster, Stirred and Salve. The reason we've all come together today is because we're all members of the Health House. The Health House is a unique network of 25 specialist agencies. We all work in the health and biomedical sectors, and by teaming up together, we activate the power of small. We combine our passion, creativity, and originality with the strength of a wide range of specialist services and proven senior expertise to deliver high value and create an impact that's bigger than the sum of our parts. Next slide, please. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Social Elements. Social Elements is a life science and healthcare marketing agency, and we help businesses to be heard online. We use our expertise and knowledge in the life sciences field, and we fuse that with our skills and expertise and up-to-date resources within social media marketing, both organic and paid. We're results driven, and we focus on working with you and your team to maximize your marketing budget whilst delivering an authentic and strategic campaign. Our 3 main services are strategic development. We believe that without a strategy to underpin your marketing activities, you're at risk of wasting time and money, and you're unlikely to get the results that you need. So together with the business, we develop the right logical and data-driven strategy that's tailor-made for your business and to meet your unique goals. We also offer ongoing services. So we offer organic and paid social media marketing services and content marketing, such as blogs, case studies, and newsletters. We help you to get the most out of your social media while maximizing your budget. And then our third service is our training and consultancy service. This is where we can go into a business and help train them in their social media marketing. We train on all aspects, but our most common packages are LinkedIn company page training, employee advocacy support, and helping to develop a strategy. We also offer consultancy services. We find that some businesses want to retain ownership of their social media marketing, but they want some help and guidance and hand-holding along the way. Next slide, please. So before I hand you over to the 4 agencies to introduce themselves, I just wanted to let you know that this is a Q&A session, so please feel free to send in your questions. You can provide questions using the comments section on LinkedIn. Ask any questions that you like about B Corp and our agency's journeys and their experiences. They're here to help and advise as far as they are possible. So thanks for that. I'll hand you over to Kath now, who's going to introduce you to Salt.
Thank you. I'm Kath from Salt. We are a strategic creative agency, and we focus very much on human connection. So understanding the people that we're wanting to engage with on a human level, and then really trying to connect with them on that basis. For us, the values are very much at the heart of what we do. So our whole business is built on the values and the purpose of what we do, making sure that that's always at the centre of how we operate. And B Corp, obviously, which we'll discuss today, is a key part of that. Alongside a few other things that we support, so we're members of 1% for the Planet. myself and my co-founder have founded a charity as well that we support, and we work closely with a group called the Carbon Department to measure, report and reduce our carbon emissions as well.
Hello, thanks for having me today. I'm Jenny. I'm Director and Head of People at WordMonster, and in my role I primarily oversee HR and recruitment, and I also led on our B Corp application. At WordMonster, we are a medical communications agency specialising in medical affairs. We also have a training branch of our business called the Monster Academy, and this is where we train people who are looking to break into the industry, and also teams within pharma clients internally. So WordMonster was founded in 2016 by my husband Carl, and when we began hiring our first team members in 2018, we wanted to do things differently from other agencies, and it was important for us to create a life-first culture where work and life could blend seamlessly. Carl had realised the traditional office wasn't for him and wanted to spend more time with the family instead of commuting every day. And back in those pre-COVID days, having a company that was completely remote was not the norm, but Carl was never one to follow the status quo and want to do things differently. And our life first culture resonated with many people, including parents, carers, those with disabilities, and anyone who just didn't thrive in the traditional office setting. So by embracing this inclusive culture, we were able to attract incredible talent and provide exceptional service to our clients. And over the years, we've looked to strengthen this culture with benefits such as share options, long service leave, paid carers leave, paid maternity and paternity leave, financial coaching, and quarterly wellbeing perks. And we have a strong focus on mental health at work, with all our line managers mental health first aid trained. And this commitment to our team and culture has led to recognition. So in 2023, we were proud to be named second best small company to work for women and 11th small company, great place to work. And our mission as a company is to transform healthcare communications worldwide for our people, patients, and the planet. And this month, we are thrilled to have earned our B Corp certification and excited today to join the other Health House B Corp members. So thanks for having me.
Hi everybody, I'm Jo Spadacino, co-founder of Stirred. Stirred is an integrated communications agency offering marketing, comms and creative services to brands and companies that want to positively influence people's health. So that includes pharmaceutical and life science companies, but also sees us working with others in the health sphere, whether that's consumer health companies, public sector, or not-for-profit organisations across both B2B and B2C. As a company, we're fueled by what we know the health sector is capable of in terms of innovation. And our ambition is really to match that through the communication solutions that we deliver for clients. We believe in the power of mixing things up a bit, or even stirring them together, in order to respond to the challenges and opportunities in front of health communicators today. We are a fairly new comms agency, just coming up to our 4th birthday, so still pretty young. We launched our business as a pending B Corp, and I can talk a bit more about that later, I'm sure. And we've had full B Corp certification since July 23.
Thanks, Jo. Hi, everybody. My name's Liz Southey. I'm Scientific Services Director at the Salve. I co-founded the Salve with my partner, Elena Mills. Similar to Jo at Stirred, we launched in 2022 as a pending B Corporation. We wanted to use the B Corporation setup as a way to really embed our values right from the outset. And what we do, we are a specialist medical affairs consultancy designed to create a positive impact in healthcare through remarkable and personal communications. And we felt that the B Corporation certification has really helped us drive that purpose in all that we do. Very, very similar to Jen at WordMonster as well. We're a fully flexible remote team. And we like to weave really human-centered strategic thinking through what we do. And not only do we do our, the traditional publications, meetings and events, medical, digital education, we also bring real strategic approach to what we do, especially in like above brand healthcare system transformations. Thank you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about B Corporation to give you some context before we go into the Q&A. You might have heard of the Better Business Act. This is being championed by Mary Portas, and it's an approach to business in the UK to really underline a more environmental and social triple bottom line alongside financial approach to doing business. And you might have heard that in people, planet and profit. So the Better Business Act is an approach to enshrining that in companies' governance structures. And actually, this is part of actually what B Corporation businesses do as well. So yes, it's part of the ESG movement. Just to define what that means, it's environmental, social and governance. B Corporation is not the only approach that you can take. There's lots of other ways of approaching business sustainably. So you might have heard of EcoVadis, Planet Mark, Living Wage, etc. So there's lots of approaches you can take, but we can talk about perhaps why we undertook B Corporation certification as the way that why we wanted to do that, and hopefully that will come across in Q&A. It's a really, really thriving movement. B Corporation started out in the US, but it's become a very big community in the UK. I think the UK is the biggest, or has the biggest number of B Corporations behind the US, but it is a global movement, and it's across the world. There's over 2,500 in the UK at the moment. Lots of really recognizable brands are B Corporation certified. It does tend to be more in the commercial or retail sector or food. You often see them in supermarkets, but hopefully you'll see through what we can talk about that it isn't just related to products, but also to service providers like ourselves as well. So what is it about B Corporations that make us unique? There is a really comprehensive analysis that we have to undertake. The B Impact Assessment is a tool that's really useful, that is available online freely, and that's the framework for anybody wanting to go through the certification process. And it focuses on, it doesn't focus on one particular aspect of the business, but it has a really holistic approach. And I'll tell you a bit about that in a minute. Relating to that Better Business Act movement in the UK, particularly the mission lock is really about the legal requirements that we have to consider our decisions on all stakeholders and not just from a financial perspective. And that's actually enshrined into our Articles of Association. And as I mentioned before, it's a global movement. So it's hopefully a real force for good in terms of trying to drive improvement and global change in the way that we do business altogether. And then finally, just to talk a little bit more about the B Impact Assessment and how it does have this holistic approach to better business across the board. The governance, as I mentioned, that's really around the policies and the practices that your company has in terms of making sure that everything it does is ethical, is accountable, and also transparent. Community, that's around what as a business you can do locally, but also perhaps with your suppliers as well, and the economic and social impact that you can have. Environment, that's kind of speaks for itself, and obviously is a focus on lots of people's approaches to sustainable business, but that's around improving your environmental stewardship. And then these last two, customers and workers, I think everybody might be a bit surprised. Probably you're already doing quite a lot of things that fulfill B Corp requirements in the customers and workers pillars, but this is around what your company can do to improve the value that you bring to your customers, and obviously, of course, what you can do to contribute to your employees' well-being beyond that of just financial as well.
Great, thanks for the introductions, everybody. That's really great. So we're going to move over to the Q&A section now. We have some questions already, but just as a reminder for people to drop their questions in the comments on LinkedIn, that would be really great. Can we have the first question, please? Thank you. So the first question is, what inspired your agency to pursue B Corp certification? I think Kath or Joe, if you could answer that one, that would be great.
Yep, sure, happy to start. So I think for us, we started our company a little bit earlier than some of the agencies on the call now. And I think, so in 2017, and at that point, right from the start, we wanted to make sure that we were doing things the right way, making decisions that sort of sat well with our conscience, and felt that we were, I suppose, working in a way that wasn't purely about profit and maximizing financial value, but had a broader scope as well. So right from the start, we had made very conscious decision making the whole way through on all aspects of our business. And then really B Corp for us was an opportunity to check how we're doing. I think we'd always tried to do things the right way, but it was a real opportunity to sort of measure how well we were actually doing in that aspect. So it was something that was very important to us. So an opportunity to actually go through a rigorous process that's very holistic, importantly, not just about the environment, which I think is what a lot of people think B Corp is about, but that's only one of 5 pillars. So actually really looking holistically across all aspects of the business to really monitor and check how we are doing, because sometimes you can have the intentions and think that you're doing things the right way, but having some kind of process and structure and suggestion is a really helpful way to check and measure that, and also to make sure that you understand what more you can do as well, so you can continue to improve. So that for us was the reason to pursue the B Corp route.
Yeah, and had you worked for any B Corps before?
No, and I think at the beginning, when we started out, I wasn't actually aware of B Corp, and they were relatively new in the UK at that point. But I think it was 2-3 years in before it started sort of popping up and really came on the radar, and thought, oh, that's actually would be really useful for us to go through that process. And it was never something that we did for necessarily competitive advantage or to meet certain client requirements or anything like that. It was something that we wanted to do for ourselves to assess where we were on that spectrum, really.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the ethos of B Corp as well, isn't it? To make people think about their businesses better and culturally.
And a construct to help you do that, really, because otherwise it is quite nebulous. It's quite hard to know.
Yeah, exactly. And what about you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of similarities with Kath. I mean, the Stirred backstory is that my co-founder Stuart and I worked together at a previous health comms agency for 10 years or so before deciding to kind of go it alone on a new journey. And I guess that, that just gives you a lovely clean sheet to kind of, build the business that you want to build. And I think, the one thing that we immediately aligned on when we decided to do this was that we wanted to build a business the right way with, strong ethics at the heart of it. And, we're all in the business of health, and obviously that's, really intertwined with a really altruistic element anyway, and the desire to do good. So, most businesses that operate in our sector, kind of have that drive and that purpose focus. So that could have been enough, but I guess, we wanted to go one step further. And for us, I suppose it was that decision as to how early we commit. And we literally, signed up to be a pending B Corp on the same day that we set our articles of association up, which, was quite scary, because it was like, right, we're going to just go for it without knowing too much about what it might entail. And I think, although obviously, what's important, you are what you do and not what you say. Actually, the kind of value of just putting yourself out there, holding yourself to account, enabling measurable goal setting, all of those things that you're doing, just felt really appealing. So that's kind of why we went that route, really. We just felt really strongly that, ESG just isn't, it's not a side tangent to the serious business of financials. It really is an intrinsic part of business success. And for us, B Corp just spoke to all of that in spades. And yeah, it kind of really seemed to align with our ethos.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's really telling, isn't it, that, of the 25 health house agencies, 4 of them are B Corp certified, which, is pretty high percentage, isn't it, really, I think?
Yeah, although, I don't know what kind of people's perceptions are. I know Liz kind of talked at the start about, might be more familiar with it from a products perspective, and you see it, on the food labelling and that kind of thing. But also I often kind of get into a discussion of, is it an SME thing to do rather than bigger business? And so, actually looking at that slide that Liz put up at the start, it really is businesses of all shapes and sizes. So that's probably one of the myths that I would say is, it suits anyone and any business.
Yeah, that was definitely a myth for me. I think it was only until I worked with Liz and Elena at the South that I realised that it was for sort of all businesses, like you said. So before that, that was my misunderstanding as well. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Can we have the next question? Okay. How well were you able to communicate the social value of your work as part of the assessment process? What were the challenges? Well, who would like to answer this question?
I can chip in a little bit because we actually were able to get an impact business model recognised for the work that we do for our clients, which I think was a way that we were able to demonstrate the social value of our actual work that we do. And I think that's a slight difference in terms of how B Corp sees you as a business. But we were able to have a really good discussion with B Corp. Part of it is demonstrating the results and impact your work is having. So it's all about measurement, which, for health communicators, that's kind of, part and parcel of what we do anyway. It's sometimes challenging to do and is very much a collaborative with client partners as well, in order to demonstrate data and really be able to dig down and show, okay, what is the health impact actually of what we're doing. But yeah, we tried really hard to do that, and luckily B Corp recognised that in our submission. So it was tough, but it's only kind of what we do anyway as part of our work. So that was kind of how it showed up in the process. And I can't remember how many marks it gave us. I think it was like 10 or 14 or something. So quite a lot out of the required 80 points.
Oh, okay. I was just about to ask how many points you need. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else want to add anything to that?
I think I just add that it also, the assessment from the social side of things looks at probably more at how you operate your business over the actual work that you produce. Although having said that, we did go through quite a rigorous process of being cleared for working in a controversial industry, working with the pharmaceutical industry. So that took quite a lot of justification to make sure that they were happy with exactly how and what and who we were doing within the pharmaceutical industry. But I would say, as long as you are doing things above board and properly, and you can measure and show the impact for patients and health improvement overall, then the focus from a social point of view is more on how you operate rather than the actual work that you're conducting.
Yeah, and there's not that many pharmaceutical companies that are B Corp registered, is there, or if at all?
I know of one.
It's Chiesi.
Chiesi, yeah.
Yeah, Sanofi as well.
Are they?
Sanofi, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that probably made things slightly more complicated for you as well, didn't it? Okay. Another question's come in. What were the most challenging aspects of establishing and maintaining B Corp status, and how do you manage these? Maybe Jenny is one of the newest B Corp companies. You could talk about their establishing part, and then one of the older companies could talk about the maintaining.
Yeah, I think the length of time it takes is really is quite challenging, because at first you go on and you go through the assessment and you think you're getting the points, how many points have I got? But some of the things that you need to do just take a lot of time, and it's got to be someone in the business that is a decision maker, because sometimes it's policy changes. Like for us, for example, one of the things that we changed was we created a board within the company, so that, and we sort of we got a non-executive director to come in, which has had such a positive impact, on us as a business. But these things do take time to put into place. So everything's doable, but it just is the time, I suppose, and cost, of creating creating an environmental policy, or putting a new benefit into place for us as a company. But yeah, all for the good of the company overall in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think time is something that is my hesitation. Social Elements isn't B Corp certified, but it is something I've considered. But yeah, I mean, as a small company, I think time is quite important, isn't it? So I think it sounds like that should be considered,
Yeah, definitely. Someone to have the time to do it. Like I know some of the other companies, you've got someone in to sort of help with that process, whereas I was able to dedicate a bit of time to it. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And Liz, I know the Salve have been certified for a couple of years now. So what do you find challenging about maintaining your status?
Yeah, so we got certification in August 2023. Part of the requirements of being a B Corp is that you have to recertify every 3 years. So you have to submit 6 months before your recertification due date. So actually we're due to submit our recertification February next year, so in about a year's time. And as part of that, you have to publish an annual impact report, and all the processes and policies that you've set up to become a B Corp, you have to continually report on in your annual impact report. So there is an ongoing element. It's not just a tick box exercise, and each year you have to set goals and improvement targets. So, and then you report on those and you're accountable for those. So it's about being really transparent in what you're trying to do and this continual improvement. One thing just to be mindful of is that the standards are actually changing this year. They're going to be, the draft standards have already been published, but they're going to be launched next month. So actually anybody who's going to recertify sort of pretty much from now onwards will have to recertify on the new standards. So it is a continual process, and it's not something that you can just say, yes, we've got it, and yes, we're now a B Corp. So it's about putting processes in place for recording, monitoring. It can be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, perhaps, for tracking your travel miles or your CO2 emissions or whatever it might be. So there's things that you have to do, but they don't have to be complicated, but you just have to do them and continually do them. And that's related to the time aspect as well, is to keep track of them all. Yeah.
I guess it's being mindful, isn't it, all the time of the
exactly. Yeah, I was going to say, I think it helps if you know from the start, because when you submit, although I don't know how much this has changed, probably not, it's for your most recent completed financial year. So don't get to the end of the year and go, oh, we'd like to submit for B Corp in the next 12 months, because then you have to go back and work out everything, because you've got to evidence everything that you say. So then there's a huge amount of work in going backwards and trying to, post rationalize things and calculate things retrospectively. So if you know you're interested, I would say at the start of your financial year, get your tracking and all of your recording in place right from the beginning. Anyone can access the B impact assessment for free. So you can go in there, you can have a look. First thing I did was go through the whole thing and answer the questions, just this is where we are now. And then you can kind of flag the ones you want to track and improve. But that would help you know from the outset, from day one of that financial year, this is what I need to be tracking so that I can show this, this, and this and get these points. So you've got a system in place to collect the data as you go. And that would save a lot of time along the way.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good tip. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next question, please. Do you think big agency groups should consider certification, and how hard might it be for them? Who would like to answer this question?
Well, I think that's probably quite a short answer, because there are big agency groups who have done it and do it. So, you know, I think that there's always going to be kind of pros and cons, isn't there? I mean, big agency groups tend to have bigger resources from an operational perspective. So, you know, they've got that in their favour. But obviously the data collection is much harder or more sizable. So pros and cons on both sides. But yeah, I think it goes to my earlier point that it's kind of for any organisation. And I think there might have been a question in the chats as well around agencies outside of the UK as well. And yeah, to Liz's earlier point, it is global. So it might be a different administration team doing it. So I think there's one per country. But yeah, it's global. So anyone, wherever you're based in the world, can go through the B Corp process.
Yeah, and I think when we were chatting about this before the event, I think somebody mentioned that there are sort of B Corp experts out there that sort of help guide you through the process as well. So I think that's really useful to know. And I'm sure there must be experts outside of the UK, you know, that are expert in B Corp in the US, for example.
The other thing on size of company, so at the moment, it's basically the same process for everybody. Everyone goes through, regardless of what industry you're in or what size of business you are, you go through the same assessment, the same scoring system and everything. And I believe that's one of the things that's changing with the new system, is it's going to be slightly more tailored for different sectors or different size of business. So it's a bit more kind of appropriate for different scales of company. So that's something obviously that they're aware people are discussing and hopefully trying to make a bit more accessible and appropriate to whoever it is that's applying to certify.
Yeah, that's a good change, I think. Okay, next question, please. We've answered that one, so next one. What do you think B Corp businesses should do next to stay relevant, and how can they improve on their certification?
That's a
I think I think you've just got to go through, you've got to keep continually going through the assessment process and picking out areas to work on. And so for us, I know there's areas that we can improve on for next over the year, and just keeping focused on those goals. And then in that way, but whilst also upkeeping what you've sort of achieved already as well. So yeah, in that way you can kind of continue to improve.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add?
I think B Corp make that really easy for you because everything is so quantified. So, you know, if you've got 3 points out for a possible 5, you know exactly what you can do to get those extra 2 points. Or if there's a category where you didn't get any points at all, you're okay, well, that's an obvious area where I can improve. So it's actually designed to help you do exactly that, to continue to improve.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned that you need to get 80 odd points to be certified. So
do at the moment, yeah, as Liz said, like it is about to have quite a dramatic change, and I guess that's to this point is also, you know, B Corp are also very keen to make sure they're continually evolving the standards to stay relevant and you know, continue that progression journey. So they're kind of doing that job for us as well. So I think it's about us kind of keeping abreast of that. But also, I guess for us, certainly, you know, yes, it's really important, but you know, it's to complement, I suppose, what we want to do as a business, not to dictate to us that, you know, we're going to do this because it gets us an extra 0.5 points or whatever. And the minute you kind of have that as your focus, you kind of lost touch with what it's all about and why you're doing it. So, you know, I think there's just that urge of caution from me that, you know, it's useful and in fact very valuable as a tool, but you're not doing it just so you can get a certain score, you know, and so it's not the tail wagging the dog.
Thanks. Next question. What are the biggest benefits you've seen since becoming a B Corp? I think you can probably all answer that. I'm sure you've all seen different benefits because your companies are all quite different. So, Kath, do you want to start?
I think it's the reaction we've had from our team, who are all very proud that we've achieved it, and also our clients, who I think this might be different to some of the rest of you from conversations we've had, but our clients that we work with, it hasn't really been something on the radar. It's not something we've ever been asked to you know, say whether we're certified or say what we're doing particularly from any of this sort of ESG territory. But when we've told them, they've all been very like, oh, this is brilliant, because this is something I can communicate to show what we're doing through our supply chain, and that we're working with ethical partners and things like that. So I think it's just been a general sort of positive halo effect of meeting those standards and, you know, being seen as a business that takes ESG seriously, and I suppose on the forefront in an industry that's perhaps a little lagging in this area at times. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Jenny, how about you? It might be too early for you to say, but what are the benefits so far?
Yeah, well, I feel like even though we haven't seen the benefits of being a B Corp in that way, just the whole going through the whole process, we've, I suppose, in the last 12 months changed our structure a lot, just because of, I feel like, you know, B Corp going through it was like a framework for like running a business as well. So that's helped us massively. And I feel like in the last 12 months, we've become a lot more organized as a business. But also things like the team getting to take part in pro bono work and things like that. Really, I feel like there's a lot more positive, emphasis in the company around those types of things. So yeah, it's definitely, like you were saying, it's not, you shouldn't just be focused on the points, but it is kind of just helping us as like how to run the business, and it's like a little framework. So yeah, I'd say that's been good.
Great, thanks. And that's good insight. Liz, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, very much echoing Kath and Jenny's views. I'd say a lot of it's intangible, but it's, I think it's a really nice way to encapsulate our values as a business. And I think that's really helped us in terms of having people with similar values come and want to work with us. And likewise with clients, they've said it's obvious that your values align with ours. And so I think it's that sort of connection and networking and the connections that you make as well when you're a B Corp. I think it's hard to measure sometimes, but they're all really positive. So from an internal perspective, but also from a client perspective as well.
Thank you. And finally, what about you, Jo?
Yeah, echo a lot of what people have said. I definitely say it's helped us to run our business really, really well. So definitely kind of agree with what Jenny was saying there. And, you know, it is that kind of common framework and language that really kind of acts as a bit of a glue, really, on, you know, how we act as a business with all of our stakeholders. You know, I think it really complements and strengthens our more specific core story as a business. It's almost a bit of a shorthand, you know, being able to quickly and easily find out whether core values align, whether that's individual or organizational level, actually. I mean, I guess, you know, to those that have a more commercial lens on this, there's always that debate of, you know, ESG in general, actually, in terms of, okay, well, what does it mean for commercial performance? And that's always really difficult to separate from other factors that are going on. I mean, I was saying the other day, but B Lab UK has put some figures out as part of B Corp Month quite recently, and the data they're sharing shows that small and medium-sized UK B Corps saw something like a 23% increase in turnover compared to the national average of 16%, and a huge difference in the increase in employee headcount compared to the national decrease, actually. So, you know, there is some figures out there. Obviously, you know, you need to dig a bit deeper with any stats that you get, but there is evidence out there that it also does have a really kind of material impact from a financial perspective on businesses. It's not going to make you rich, and it's not a magic bullet, but yeah, I think there is definitely a kind of a kickback to financial success as well.
I think that's really important as well, and I think it's only going to get more and more important, especially as younger generations come through, and what they're looking for and what they're expecting from an employer and from a business that they engage with is different. And I think it's, you know, it's good to have that evidence to show that actually being B Corp does improve your financial health as well, because I think sometimes it's seen as a very intangible, wishy-washy, well, that's nice, you can skip around and hold hands and be nice to people, but actually we're a business, so what's the point? And I do remember a former colleague of mine talking about business with purpose and really scoffing at that concept. It's like, the purpose of any business is to make money. Why are people going on about purpose? And yes, we all work for profit-making organizations, but it doesn't have to be the only purpose, and it doesn't have to define, you know, how you run your business. You don't have to run your business purely to make money. There can be a lot of things around the outside that may not directly seem to have an impact, but actually lead to good business as a result.
Yeah, I think that's really good. We've got about 5 minutes left, so if there's any more questions, feel free to send them in. But in the meantime, next question, please. What can B Corp themselves do to stay relevant or improve their process? Kath, what do you think?
Oh, I was hoping to go to someone else first. I think actually they are doing quite a lot. I think, I mean, over the last 12 months, well, probably over longer than that, but there's been a huge increase in the number of people seeking and achieving B Corp certification. I feel like it's really on the up of the curve.
Do you think it's increasing?
So there's been a lot of, because of that, been a lot of demand. And all of us who've been through that process know you sit in a queue for a really long time. Like, you spend ages gathering all your data and information and answering your questions and evidencing everything. And then you sit there in silence for 6 months waiting for someone to suddenly pick it up and start asking you questions on it. So it's quite, it is currently a cumbersome process and quite a slow process. I think they perhaps have been a victim of their own success. So they need to sort of find a way of smoothing that out and you know, being a little bit more slick in how they operate and making that process more streamlined to go through. But I think because they are about to change the whole system, hopefully when that comes through, we'll see that they are doing all the right things to improve the process and to stay relevant and responding to what people want. Like, for example, making it much more about, you know, tailored to different types of company and making it more standards based rather than purely points based and things like that. I think they will need to continue to evolve. At the moment, it is a fairly rigid process. There is a one size fits all. So, you know, I think they're already taking big steps to change that and address that for the next generation of B Corps.
And it'd be interesting to see what the new standards show, whether they're trying to improve their processing or make it less cumbersome.
There is actually quite a lot of info in the public domain already. I mean, you know, transparency, I think, is, you know, one of the watchwords of, I guess, this type of movement, and being held to account and being okay with people prodding and, you know, kind of criticising. And, you know, it's definitely not been without its controversy, and there have been high profile departures from, you know, the framework. There's you know, there's been quite a few investigations from B Corp amongst current B Corps. So it's pretty rigorous in terms of the steps that it goes through. But yeah, they have been very public about how they're evolving the standards, and it's been through months and months, if not years, of consultation. So if anyone does want to kind of get ahead on what the new standards mean, there's some pretty big clues, I think, on their website at the moment.
Brilliant, thank you for that tip. Next question, please. What advice, so I think this is probably a good question to finish on. So what advice would you give to a business considering the certification? Jenny, what do you think, as you're quite new to this and you've just come through it?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say probably what we'll all say is just it's worth just, if you've got the time, just to go for it and go through the B Corp assessment, because it is free and you'll get a gauge of like what points you're on right at that moment, where you could improve. And even if you don't want to actually become B Corp, like you don't, it's still a good framework to go through, sort of like I said, and it's a great way to sort of see what you should be doing to become a better business. So yeah, I would say just go for it.
Okay, thanks. And what about you, Liz?
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously with the new standards coming up, the current B impact assessment is on the old sort of point system, but there's a lot that will be sort of brought through from the old report into the new standards. And it's instead of scoring points, just to clarify, instead of scoring points and minimum threshold of points, you actually have to meet minimum standards across the 5 pillars. So it's a slight change there. So there are things that you will need to do, but a lot of those things are already in the current impact assessment report. So it's still worthwhile doing that, even though anybody starting now would need to go through the new process. But yeah, and like Jenny says, it's still a really excellent framework to look at areas of your business that you may not have even considered. Yeah, I would definitely recommend exactly the same.
Thank you. Thanks. Kath and Joe, is there anything extra you wanted to add?
I would say, from our experience, get someone to help you with it, because we started it, we completed the assessment, we went, we've got, I think it was 55 points or something, just from like doing it straight off the bat. And then it was sort of like, oh, great, look, we're almost there. And then that process to actually engage with thinking about how and where and when to get the extra points, to make the time to actually focus on it. It was 2 years later before we went, we just need to get someone in to make us do this. And once we did that, 5 or 6 months, and we were submitted. So I think, even though, like many things in a small business, you're reluctant to kind of put things out the door and, you know, pay for consultants to come in, and you feel like anything that you're capable of doing, you should be doing yourself. But I think it's one of those things definitely that I would recommend getting someone in, because even just knowing you've got a monthly meeting in the diary to go through each impact area means you're going to get it done. You've got a deadline.
Yeah, it maintains the traction, doesn't it?
Yeah. Otherwise it could take forever.
Yeah. And what about you, Joe?
I would, support what everybody else has said, really. I mean, we definitely used a B leader, which are kind of independent consultants, but they're kind of recognised by B Lab as people who know their way around the assessment and they know what they're doing. Because, you know, I think we all kind of feel like, you know, it's our business, no one knows our business like we do, and you don't want to outsource something so important. But it's not about that. It's about actually learning and just benefiting from people who really know their way around the process. So, it's definitely a good shortcut. And also, I would just say the B Corp community at large, like us. I mean, I have to say, and I was like really bowled over that there was so much support and guidance from strangers who I'd just approached on LinkedIn, because I knew that they'd been through the process. And so many people were just like genuinely willing to, you know, have a coffee, get on the phone and share tips and advice. So, people are much more generous and happy to help when you think. So just ask.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I think that's a brilliant way to end the session. Thanks everybody for your time. Kath, Jenny, Liz and Joe, thanks for sharing your expertise. Thanks also for everyone who joined us today. You can connect with all of us over on LinkedIn, as you would expect. Just scan these QR codes. Also, the recording will be sent over. It'll automatically go into LinkedIn after the event. So if any of your colleagues would be interested to see this, feel free to share with them. The next LinkedIn Live session will be in May now. Topic is yet to be defined. It'll be on the 21st of May, so hopefully you can join us then. So thanks once again, everybody, and see you soon.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.